Before the summer break, Lewis Hamilton made a daring move inside Ferrari. He quietly submitted confidential papers to the team's top hierarchy, revealing exactly what he believes must be transformed if Ferrari is ever going to climb back to the very summit of Formula One. What secrets do those documents contain? And why could they spark one of the biggest turning points in Ferrari's modern history? Stay tuned until the very end, because what Hamilton set in motion will leave you questioning everything. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. So here we are, right at the core of what is rapidly spiraling into one of the most breathtaking and unpredictable dramas the modern era of Formula One has produced, a storyline that goes far beyond the roar of engines and the physics of speed and dives into the invisible battlefields of psychology, leadership, authority, and power inside the most iconic and mythologized team in the history of the sport. Just as the season reached its pause, when silence usually replaces noise and calm takes over chaos, Lewis Hamilton, instead of disappearing into rest and leisure, executed a move so deliberate, so charged with intent, that it has jolted the entire Ferrari institution into a state of shock and restless introspection. While others unplugged, Hamilton sharpened his focus and quietly delivered a set of confidential, rigorously constructed, and brutally honest documents to the highest ranks of the Scuderia. These weren't letters written casually, nor were they half-hearted reflections tossed into the air. They were deeply analytical, mercilessly candid, and meticulously structured dossiers that cut through Ferrari's protective armor with the force of a scalpel. The scale of what he did is almost unprecedented. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. Hamilton didn't limit himself to pointing out flaws in the SF-75's aerodynamics, or listing weaknesses in mechanical balance, or underlining where the engine lags behind the Red Bull powerhouse. Instead, he went deeper, further, piercing through the surface layers and aiming straight at the core of Ferrari's inner being. He wrote about the culture of Maranello itself, about the way hierarchies sometimes choke creativity, about the fragility of decision-making in the heat of battle, about how engineers and strategists communicate during Grand Prix weekends, about how panic replaces clarity when the unexpected happens, and about how bureaucracy, pride, and tradition often suffocate innovation before it has the chance to bloom. He examined the heartbeat of Ferrari, exposed the arteries where the blood doesn't flow freely, and demanded that those blockages be cleared if the Scuderia has any genuine desire to be more than a name wrapped in nostalgia. And while he has insisted these weren't imperial orders, while he framed them as reflections and proposals born from observation, there is no way to hide the blade within the words. Every paragraph carries the weight of his career, of his legacy, of his refusal to repeat the history that has haunted Ferrari's most famous signings. He reminded the team, without hesitation, that Fernando Alonso invested his prime in Maranello and left without a crown, that Sebastian Vettel walked through Ferrari's gates carrying the aura of a four-time world champion and departed bitter, scarred, and empty-handed. Hamilton, with absolute clarity, warned Ferrari that he will not allow himself to become another ghost in their corridors, another wasted legend haunting their archives. His chapter in red will not be written in failure, and that declaration has sent a chill across the paddock. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. What makes this moment even more compelling is the sheer determination etched in Hamilton's approach. He isn't simply here to drive. He is here to bend Ferrari into a new shape, to drag it by force if necessary into the present, to shatter the weight of rituals and symbols that no longer serve its future. His message to Ferrari is unmistakable. Nostalgia does not win championships, ceremonies do not stop Red Bull, and sentimentality will not dethrone Mercedes. Only speed, clarity, unity, and bold reinvention can do that, and he is determined to impose that reality on a team that has too often clung to the comfort of its past rather than the demands of its future. Inside Ferrari, the atmosphere is combustible. Pride is colliding with fear, resistance with hope, tradition with desperation. The older generation, the guardians of Maranello's myth, feel wounded, almost betrayed, interpreting Hamilton's critiques as an attack on their sacred identity. They whisper that no outsider, no matter how decorated, has the right to dictate how Ferrari lives and breathes. Yet the younger ranks, the engineers scarred by repeated strategic blunders, the mechanics exhausted by pit-stop errors, the strategists embarrassed by radio messages that become global memes, they see Hamilton's move as liberation. For them, these reports are not criticism but salvation, the spark of revolution that could finally free Ferrari from its self-imposed chains. The team is now split in two worlds, those who cling to pride and those who long for reinvention. The brilliance of Hamilton's timing cannot be overstated. Dropping this truth bomb just before the summer break guarantees that no one in Maranello will enjoy rest. Instead of relaxation, the leadership will now live inside their own storm, replaying his words, dissecting his critiques, debating his demands. The silence of August, usually filled with recovery, will instead echo with arguments in closed-door meetings, with midnight phone calls, with sleepless nights haunted by the realization that Hamilton has forced them to confront questions they have avoided for years. The break has turned into a prison of thought, a restless interlude where every leader must decide, do we yield to Hamilton's vision or retreat into stubbornness? Outside Ferrari's gates, the ripple is just as powerful. Fans are enthralled, gossip surges through social media, speculation explodes in newsrooms, and rival teams hover like hawks, watching carefully. Red Bull observes with a mix of amusement and caution, wondering if Ferrari will implode or emerge stronger than ever. Mercedes, Hamilton's old home, watches with irony, recognizing the same fire that built their empire now attempting to ignite Maranello. Every word Hamilton speaks from now on, every clipped radio message, every subtle glare at his pit wall will be studied like a piece of encrypted code, dissected for clues about the internal war he has unleashed. In truth, what Hamilton has done is redraw the map of his partnership with Ferrari. He has told them plainly that he is not a decorative figure, not a marketing icon, not a fading champion basking in the glow of red. He is a force of change, a demand for adaptation, a driver who insists that his final act in Formula One will be written not in disappointment but in fire. By sending those reports, he has forced Ferrari to stand at the edge of transformation, staring into the abyss of its own traditions, asked to choose between reinvention and stagnation, between future and past, between glory and ruin. This is no longer about a car or a title chase. It is about power, identity, defiance, and legacy. It is about a man unwilling to be broken by history and a team forced to decide whether to evolve or to crumble. And as Formula One waits for the season to resume, one truth has become undeniable. Lewis Hamilton has turned Ferrari's silence into a battlefield, and whatever comes next will echo for decades. The documents that Italian newspapers claim to have partially revealed do not read like ordinary communications from a racing driver to his team. Instead of the usual reports where a driver might highlight understeer in Sector 2 or difficulties finding grip on corner exit, what Lewis Hamilton appears to have delivered is something much more forceful, more structured, and more provocative. It is not just feedback, it is a blueprint for dismantling the inefficiencies that he sees at Ferrari, a call to arms from a competitor who has known the taste of near-perfect execution at Mercedes and refuses to tolerate the half-measures and missteps that, in his view, continue to plague Maranello. These papers, if the leaks are accurate, lay bare not only the mechanical flaws that prevent him from exploiting his own skill but also the cultural and structural barriers that make Ferrari slower off the track than on it. Hamilton is said to have opened with the most tangible area of critique, the car itself. He described braking systems that lack uniformity and stability, leaving him uncertain every time he approaches a corner at full speed. Instead of the seamless, predictable response he once enjoyed in a Silver Arrow, he now finds himself working with pedals that sometimes snatch violently and other times go spongy, creating hesitation where there should be total trust. He drew attention to steering dynamics that do not provide the exact feedback a world champion requires. At moments, the wheel feels overly rigid, fighting against him like an opponent rather than serving as an extension of his hands. At other times, the steering goes numb, depriving him of the micro-sensations needed to read the asphalt and position the car with millimetric accuracy. He noted that the engine braking calibration is another area of misalignment, producing a drag effect that interrupts his rhythm when approaching corners, forcing him into compromises that distort his instinctive style. He raised concerns about weight distribution, insisting that imbalances are magnified at high loads, particularly when conditions change unexpectedly, leaving the car teetering between manageable and uncontrollable. The case study he presented from Spa encapsulates the dilemma. That weekend, Hamilton pushed for an experimental brake setup of his own suggestion. In the rain, the modification made him look untouchable, carving through the mist with remarkable confidence, moments that reminded observers of his prime years when he seemed capable of bending physics to his will. Yet when the track dried, the setup flipped into a liability. In qualifying, as he attacked a high-speed section, the car snapped without warning, sending him spinning off in a manner both spectacular and baffling. The engineers pored over the telemetry, searching for answers, but Hamilton's interpretation was simpler and harsher. This was not merely a driver error or an unlucky quirk. It was, to him, evidence of a deeper instability in Ferrari's platform. The lesson he took was clear. The team cannot continue approaching setups like games of chance, hoping for miracles. Experiments should be guided by robust analysis, not desperation. At Mercedes, he reminded them, gambles were built on mountains of data. At Ferrari, they feel like coin tosses. After this technical dissection, Hamilton turned to what he believes is the true cancer within the Scuderia, the decision-making structure. He wrote with brutal honesty about Ferrari's race management, describing it as slow, hesitant, and fragmented. He painted a picture of strategists debating while opportunities evaporate, engineers second-guessing while rivals act decisively, and crucial calls being delayed because too many people must approve them. According to Hamilton, these delays have already cost them points and could easily cost championships. He contrasted this with the Mercedes model, which he knows intimately, a lean, efficient organism where authority is delegated, voices are clear, and action is immediate. There, bureaucracy was trimmed to the bone, egos were put aside, and everyone understood that the only priority was winning. At Ferrari, he lamented, hierarchy suffocates initiative, politics creep into engineering discussions, and by the time consensus is reached, it is already too late. The memos apparently escalated further, moving from operational critique into existential challenge. Hamilton pointed out that Ferrari is unlike any other team. It is more than a sporting outfit, it is a cultural monument, a source of Italian pride, and a global corporate brand whose stock price reacts to podiums and failures alike. This means that decisions are influenced not only by trackside personnel but also by executives in distant boardrooms in Turin and Milan, individuals with little direct connection to racing yet immense sway over the team's operations. Hamilton argued that this influence is corrosive, that it slows Ferrari down, that it prevents the racing division from behaving with the autonomy required to fight at the front. He demanded that communication lines be redrawn, that layers of bureaucracy be slashed, that authority be redistributed directly to those who need it most in the heat of battle. He insisted that Fred Vasseur must be allowed to act independently, free from the invisible chains that tie him to corporate overseers. The model Hamilton sketched out resembled the structure that propelled Mercedes into near invincibility, a team united by clarity, where strategists, engineers, and mechanics worked in unison, with no unnecessary interference. But here lies the paradox that makes the situation so volatile. Ferrari has always resisted precisely this kind of revolution. The Scuderia thrives on tradition, on a hierarchy that has defined its identity for decades, on the aura of being not just a team but an institution. To dismantle those layers, as Hamilton suggests, would mean attacking Ferrari at its very core, reshaping its culture into something unrecognizable to its old guard. And so the standoff emerges. Hamilton is pressing them to abandon the past in the pursuit of victory, while Ferrari risks clinging to the past and condemning itself to more years of frustration. If they bow to Hamilton, they could trigger a rebirth. If they resist, they may destroy the very alliance they believed would bring them back to glory. The paddock, predictably, is buzzing. Rival outfits are observing with fascination, some amused at Ferrari's internal turmoil, others wary of what might happen if the team embraces Hamilton's vision. In whispered conversations, engineers from other squads admit that if Ferrari truly adopts his blueprint, the Scuderia could rise again to a dominance not seen since Schumacher's reign. Yet there is also skepticism. Can an institution so weighed down by politics, pride, and legacy actually change, even under pressure from one of the sport's greatest champions? This unfolding drama has become far more than a technical critique. It has turned into a battle of philosophies, a clash between a driver forged in the furnace of Mercedes' relentless efficiency and a team entangled in its own mythology. The outcome will shape not only Hamilton's legacy but Ferrari's trajectory for years to come. Each race weekend now carries not just the tension of competition on track, but the shadow of this larger conflict playing out behind the scenes. Every hesitant pit call, every missed opportunity, every podium lost to rivals becomes another piece of evidence in Hamilton's case against Ferrari's way of doing things. The world watches, wondering whether the Scuderia will finally be brave enough to shed its old skin or whether pride will chain it to mediocrity. The motorsport scene is shifting in ways that seem to ripple across every series and every paddock conversation, and one of the most intriguing stories weaving itself through the chaos concerns Mick Schumacher. His name, forever linked to one of the most legendary dynasties in racing history, continues to attract speculation, and the latest whispers point toward a surprising connection with Cadillac. The American manufacturer, determined to strengthen its reputation in endurance competition while simultaneously teasing the possibility of expanding into the world of Formula One, has been quietly evaluating options for talent. Among those names, Mick has emerged as a compelling candidate. The potential arrangement would see him linked with the Cadillac-supported HOTA program, a move that could not only secure him a competitive environment to rebuild his momentum but also serve as a stepping stone toward a role within Cadillac's broader ambitions, should their F1 project take definitive form. This scenario gained even more traction after Jenson Button, the admired 2009 world champion whose influence extended far beyond his achievements on track, announced his decision to step away from professional competition once this season concludes. His retirement doesn't just mark the end of a remarkable chapter, it reshapes the structure of opportunities across multiple disciplines. Button's absence leaves a void that instantly raises questions about who will step forward to seize the roles that his departure frees up. For Mick, this timing could not be more significant. His career has often been framed by potential unfulfilled, and the idea that Cadillac might see him as both a marketable figure and a capable driver provides him with the opening he has long been waiting for. For the manufacturer, the association with a Schumacher brings global recognition and media attention that few names can match, while for Mick, it represents the possibility of finally escaping the shadow of doubt and re-establishing himself at the forefront of international motorsport. The response from fans and insiders has been divided, sparking endless debates across social platforms and within the paddock. Advocates insist that this could be his long-awaited lifeline, a chance to prove himself in a demanding category while positioning himself within an ambitious project with crossover potential into Formula One. Skeptics counter that Cadillac would be wiser to invest in rising prospects without the weight of expectation attached to their every lap. Yet, regardless of which side one takes, the conversation continues to gather energy, and the attention directed toward Mick's next move demonstrates just how valuable his presence remains, even after time away from the F1 grid. Simultaneously, a storm of a different kind brews over the structure of Formula One's global schedule. The calendar is already bursting with events, pushing teams, drivers, and fans to the limits of endurance, yet new contenders keep appearing, determined to secure a place on the sport's most prestigious stage. Portugal has mounted a determined push, with the nation's Prime Minister himself publicly voicing support for a return to Portimao by 2027. The circuit, with its breathtaking elevation changes and flowing corners, left a strong impression during its brief stint on the schedule, and its advocates believe the time is right for its reinstatement. Istanbul Park, long remembered for delivering dramatic and unpredictable races, is also pressing for a comeback, leveraging its history and fan enthusiasm to strengthen its case. Beyond Europe, the competition becomes even fiercer. South Africa's bid reflects a powerful mix of nostalgia and ambition, seeking to bring Formula One back to the African continent for the first time in decades while tapping into a passionate and underserved market. Rwanda's entry into the conversation has surprised many, with promoters arguing that a Grand Prix could serve as a catalyst for tourism, investment, and international attention. Thailand, however, has emerged as perhaps the most formidable challenger. With Bangkok at the heart of its proposal and immense government financial backing supporting the bid, Thailand is now regarded as one of the strongest candidates to join the rotation, positioning itself as a heavyweight in the struggle for calendar slots. The issue, however, is that the schedule cannot expand endlessly without consequences. Teams are already stretched to breaking point by the relentless travel, mechanics are pushed beyond their limits by the logistical demands, and even supporters have voiced concerns about fatigue from a season that seems to grow longer each year. To add new venues, others must be sacrificed, and this trade-off has become one of the most contentious debates in the sport. Heritage circuits with decades of history face the risk of being sidelined, not because they fail to produce exciting racing, but because they lack the financial firepower to compete with newer, wealthier locations. This conflict highlights the growing divide between tradition and commercial expansion, sparking heated discussions about what truly defines the spirit of Formula One. Madrid serves as a prime example of the forces driving these decisions. Despite widespread doubt over the quality and authenticity of the planned circuit, the Spanish capital appears guaranteed a place on the future schedule, thanks largely to powerful political backing and major financial commitments. Critics argue that this is symptomatic of a wider problem, that race selection is being driven more by money and influence than by passion or sporting merit. Supporters, on the other hand, point to the stability and long-term investment such deals provide, insisting that the sport cannot ignore the economic realities that sustain it. What makes all of this so compelling is how these parallel stories intertwine. Just as Mick Schumacher's future hinges on timing, strategy, and brand value as much as on outright speed, the fate of entire nations on the F1 calendar is determined by influence, lobbying, and financial muscle as much as by their love of racing. Button's retirement acts as a catalyst that changes the balance of opportunities across multiple categories, while the tug-of-war over the schedule forces fans, teams, and officials alike to confront the uncomfortable question of whether the sport is guided by authenticity or by profit. Every move in this complex dance generates new speculation, every rumor feeds the fire of anticipation, and every decision alters the landscape of a sport that never seems to stand still. In the intricate and ever-changing universe of Formula One, where survival, prestige, and glory are all woven into the same high-speed tapestry, it is often the least expected events that shake the entire structure of the sport. What has taken the paddock by complete surprise is the audacious maneuver of Haas, a team usually described with words like modest, conservative, and pragmatic, now thrusting itself into the spotlight by rolling out a daring performance upgrade package in the very heart of the season. For outsiders, for fans, for rival engineers, and even for seasoned commentators, the idea of Haas suddenly throwing resources into a mid-season gamble seemed so improbable that it almost bordered on fiction. Yet once the situation is examined with precision, the picture becomes clear. This is not recklessness born of desperation, but a precise, calculated move designed to alter their destiny in a championship where every single point represents survival, growth, and transformation. Haas has always stood apart because of its operating model. Unlike most competitors, who spend fortunes reinventing every suspension arm, every gearbox casing, and every aerodynamic surface, Haas makes extensive use of its tight technical alliance with Ferrari. By acquiring key components directly from Maranello, they spare themselves the impossible financial weight of full-scale development. This distinctive arrangement creates something rare in Formula One: breathing room. That breathing room allows them to divert funds, manpower, and focus toward selective projects that can create outsized results. This is precisely why their sudden decision to push through an aggressive new upgrade is not as irrational as it seems. To a smaller squad forever balancing on the edge between sustainability and irrelevance, a bold strike at the right time can redefine everything. The numbers themselves tell a compelling story. Haas currently stands on 35 points in the championship table. For those not familiar with the intricacies of Formula One structure, that figure might seem insignificant. But in the brutal battlefield of the midfield, those points are a golden currency. They place Haas within striking distance of 2 or 3 direct competitors, and the gap separating positions in this portion of the standings is razor thin. The difference between finishing 9th and climbing to 7th may be a matter of a single successful weekend, yet the implications are massive. Millions more in prize money, increased negotiating power with sponsors, and a heightened sense of credibility in a sport that never forgives mediocrity. For Haas, this is not only about money. It is about proving they are more than Ferrari's client, more than the team that only survives year to year. It is about reshaping perception, securing stability, and building confidence for everyone involved in their project. One only needs to look back a single season to find proof that miracles in the midfield do happen. Alpine, a team adrift in uncertainty and seemingly destined for obscurity, found themselves resurrected in spectacular fashion during a single weekend in Sao Paulo, where both cars stormed to the podium. Overnight, the narrative surrounding them shifted from collapse to revival. That singular event reinvigorated their workforce, reassured investors, and reminded the grid that no team is ever truly buried. Haas now pursues a similar dream. One breakthrough race, powered by their audacious upgrades, could turn an otherwise forgettable season into the most important chapter in their history. The ambition is not just to score points, but to redefine identity, to show the paddock that Haas can no longer be dismissed as a minor character in the great play of Formula One. While Haas throws itself into this high-stakes technical adventure, an entirely different yet equally captivating transformation unfolds in the reigning champion's garage. Red Bull, a team long synonymous with ruthless efficiency and absolute dominance, finds itself in a moment of introspection and subtle upheaval. With Christian Horner temporarily removed from the spotlight, Laurent Mekies has stepped into a leadership role that extends far beyond caretaker duties. Known for his tireless energy, his insatiable curiosity, and his ability to motivate those around him, Mekies has already begun to imprint his character on the team. His influence has been recognized publicly by Max Verstappen, a driver not easily impressed and not prone to offering praise unless it is deeply earned. The Dutchman's acknowledgement of Mekies' style signals that something within Red Bull's fortress-like culture is shifting. The question that hovers like a storm cloud above Milton Keynes is whether this shift will be fleeting or permanent. The core issue revolves around Red Bull's driver policy, a cornerstone of their philosophy for over 2 decades. For years, Red Bull cultivated an image of being brutally uncompromising with young talent. Drivers were given opportunities, but those opportunities came laced with a sword hanging above their heads, failed to deliver, and the conveyor belt would replace them without hesitation. It was a system that forged champions like Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen himself, but it also ended careers almost as quickly as they began. Under Horner, stability was not just rare, it was almost impossible. Now, with Mekies steering the ship, there is growing speculation that the team may finally break from its tradition of ruthless churn and instead embrace a philosophy of patience, continuity, and loyalty. Whispers from within the paddock suggest something few would have dared imagine in previous seasons: the possibility that both current drivers might be retained for the next campaign. Such a scenario would have been inconceivable under the old regime, but with Mekies shaping the internal tone, it has become a very real option. This potential continuity, however, has sparked fierce debate behind closed doors. Helmut Marko, the long-standing architect of Red Bull's talent conveyor belt, remains deeply invested in Yuki Tsunoda, convinced the Japanese driver possesses both the raw speed and the temperament to grow into a future star. At the same time, Liam Lawson continues to present a compelling argument through his consistent performances in testing and reserve roles, showcasing the readiness and hunger that Red Bull has always valued. And beyond them, the future looms in the form of prodigies like Arvid Lindblad and Isaac Hadjar, whose names already circulate in conversations about tomorrow's champions. The result is a pressure cooker atmosphere where every race weekend carries consequences far beyond trophies and points. Every qualifying lap, every overtaking maneuver, every mistake on track could serve as ammunition in the internal struggle over Red Bull's future. If Verstappen feels reassured and the team continues to dominate, Mekies' vision of a stable, loyal Red Bull may solidify into reality. But if results falter, if Verstappen senses complacency, or if external rivals close the gap, the pendulum could swing back instantly, and Red Bull might resurrect its unforgiving culture of rapid turnover, crushing dreams to chase immediate results. The juxtaposition of Haas and Red Bull illustrates two parallel battles that, while different in scale, share the same essence: the fight to redefine identity. Haas is clawing for survival and relevance, gambling on a bold technical step to secure millions and the morale of its workforce. Red Bull, at the opposite extreme, is wrestling with the question of what it means to dominate, whether to continue with the merciless traditions that built its empire or to reinvent itself as a team willing to evolve, adapt, and value loyalty alongside results. This dual narrative captures everything that makes Formula One the most compelling drama in sport. It is not only about speed or engineering, it is about ambition colliding with fear, tradition clashing with reinvention, and individuals, whether mechanics fighting for their jobs or world champions shaping team legacies, making choices that will echo through the years. Haas embodies the underdog's audacity, taking a leap that could either secure their place in history or expose their fragility. Red Bull reflects the unease of champions, questioning whether their tried-and-true ruthlessness still serves them in a changing world. And as both stories unfold simultaneously, the sport itself is reminded of its central truth. Formula One is never just about racing. It is about transformation, risk, survival, and the eternal chase for reinvention, where every point, every upgrade, and every decision has the power to reshape destiny. Mercedes se encuentra en un instant donde la tensión entre el presente y el futuro define cada movimiento, una etapa en la que los resultados inmediatos parecen respaldar entre los dedos, pero la visión a largo plazo mantiene viva la llama de la ambición. En la sede de Brackley, la mentalidad que predomina es la de un equipo que entiende que los altibajos recientes no son una condena definitiva, sino parte de una estrategia calculada donde prácticamente todos los recursos humanos, tecnológicos y financieros han sido reorientados hacia el cambio de era que traen consigo las nuevas reglas de 2026. George Russell lo ha dejado claro al hablar frente a los medios. Los tropiezos actuales no equivalen a un desastre, sino a una consecuencia lógica de haber puesto casi toda la energía en lo que está por venir. Dentro de los departamentos de diseño, las primeras imágenes conceptuales de lo que podría ser el futuro monoplaza ya circulan en pantallas y planos confidenciales. Los prototipos muestran coches más compactos, con un aspecto más ligero, líneas más agresivas y un diseño que abandona elementos como las cubiertas de rutas, que en los últimos años generan opiniones divididas. Russell, con entusiasmo poco habitual en declarations, afirmó que estas versiones preliminares no solo recuperan atractivo visual, sino que transmiten la sensación de que la Fórmula 1 vuelve a su esencia, con máquinas que impactan a primera vista y divulgan la emoción de contemplar un bolide en estado puro. El problema es que el campeonato no espera a nadie, While la realidad de cada fin de semana obliga a Mercedes assumptirse al juicio implacable del cronometro y del público. No basta con hablar de proyectos futuros cuando los patrocinadores y los aficionados exigen ver competitividad hoy. Los inversores quieren comprobar que su dinero sigue ligado a un equipo capaz de render en el presente, y los fans necesitan sentir que su fidelidad no es en vano. Un par de carreras mediocres generan incertidumbre, la incertidumbre se transforma en rumores, y los rumores se expanden en forma de dudas sobre si Mercedes sigue teniendo la misma fuerza que la convirtió en una dinastía imparable. La tensión entre asegurar resultados inmediatos y preparar la revolución de 2026's Union Juego Delaware equilibrios delicadísimo. Enfocarse demasiado en el mañana podría poner en riesgo la reputación actual, mientras que priorizar demasiado lo inmediato podría significar perder el tren de las grandes oportunidades cuando llegue el nuevo reglamento. Esa cuerda floja es la que recorre hoy la Scuderia alemana, que intenta mostrar firmeza mientras destina la mayor parte de su esfuerzo al porvenir. En Italia, la situación de Ferrari se mueve en un terreno cargado de simbolismo, porque cada paso que da el equipo rojo está marcado por la sombra de su historia. Piero Ferrari, hijo del mítico Enzo, reconoció con honestidad que el equipo ha atravesado demasiadas veces ciclos dañinos en los que la ilusión inicial terminaba en frustración, y donde el brillo de algunos logros quedaba rápidamente ensombrecido por caídas abruptas. En la era actual, con el límite presupuestario controlando cada movimiento, salir de esas dinámicas es más difícil que nunca. La vieja costumbre de abrir el grifo económico y superar a los rivals gastando más ya no existe. Hoy, el camino exige inteligencia, flexibilidad y una precisión casi quirúrgica en cada decisión. En ese contexto, la llegada de Lewis Hamilton no ha sido un fichaje más, sino una sacudida que amenaza con modificar de raíz los cimientos de la escudería. Sus notas internas, enviadas directamente a la cúpula del equipo, no son simples observaciones técnicas. Se asemejan a manifiestos redactados con el propósito de generar un terremoto cultural dentro de Maranello. Hamilton no se limita a pedir ajustes aerodinámicos o mejoras en las suspensions. Exige una reestructuración profunda que elimine la burocracia, demonte las luchas internas de poder y libera a Ferrari de la pesada inercia política que tantas veces ha frenado su evolución. Sus palabras son un llamado a convertirse en una organización ágil, afilada y con la audacia suficiente para innovar antes que reaccionar, para anticiparse a los rivals en lugar de quedarse rezagada. El dilema que surge es cruelmente irónico. Incluso si Ferrari decide escuchar y aplicar sus propuestas con rapidez, la transformación de una maquinaria tan arraigada no se logra de un día para otro. Los frutos de esas reformas podrían tardar más de lo que dura el propio ciclo competitivo de Hamilton en la Scuderia. Eso abriría un escenario fascinante, que el principal beneficiado de esas similas de cambio no sea él, sino Charles Leclerc, el joven que encarna la esperanza de una generación de tifosi y que podría heredar un equipo reconstruido a partir de la visión del 7 veces campeón. Imaginemos la paradoja. Hamilton, idolatrado como uno de los mejores pilotos de la historia, podría no ser recordado por los títulos logrados con Ferrari, sino por haber sido el arquitecto del renacimiento que devolvió la gloria a Maranello en manos de otro. Para Leclerc, esa perspectiva resulta tan atractiva como desafiante, porque podría verse como el heredero de un legado construido sobre la experiencia y la exigencia de Hamilton, pero también cargaría con la responsabilidad de no desaprovechar el esfuerzo y las reformas implementadas. Para los aficionados, la situación es un torbellino de emociones. Saben que Hamilton está removiendo estructuras, enfrentándose a tradiciones que parecen intocables y forzando a Ferrari a evolucionar, pero también sienten el peso de la espera, conscientes de que cada año sin un título prolonga un vacío que duele en la memoria colectiva de la Fórmula 1. El propio Hamilton convive con esa contradicción. Puede que no consiga levantar un campeonato vestido de rojo, pero al mismo tiempo tiene ante sí la posibilidad de construir una juela que trascienda el palmarés. La de ser recordado como el reformador que reconstruyó Ferrari desde dentro, como la mente que sembró la semilla de una hegemonía futura.